Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next season of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Akaban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. So let's start without any delay. Finished, all the information is sorted according to the position. The next step is to analyze who is suitable. Shimi stretched his body. It took a long time to finalize it, it was not easy. He looked up, in a daze. Where are Akaban and Shinosuke? Aren't they still there? Going back first without Shimi. Is it really okay? Can you help? Or, do you want to deal with those heady records together? Akaban and Shinosuke got out of the soil. Shinosuke looked back several times, but thinking of the headache-inducing materials and dense texts, his scalp numb. Therefore, although it was not a good idea, he still followed Akaban honestly. On the run, Akaban has rich experience. Besides, he also has a perception ability. After the perception ability is released, he can easily perceive the surrounding movement. So avoiding Shimi perception is just a breeze. Tsunade is in the comic shop. Shinosuke, I have to go first. Tsunade has been very busy recently, either studying how to use medical jutsu or observing those doctors in the hospital. Not to mention looking for Akaban, even the doctors in the hospital had to pull her to eat. So coming to find himself, there must be something important. Should I help? Shinosuke thought about what was important and immediately asked out of concern. No, I will handle it myself. As his voice fell, Akaban knotted his hands and left instantly. Arriving at the comic shop at full speed, Akaban saw Tsunade sitting in front of the door, thinking about the comic in her hand. She took more than one copy, many of which were previously released. Seeing you here, did your medical ninjutsu succeed? Akaban sat down as he asked. Because of leaving halfway, coupled with the relationship between the job fair, there are no shadow clones stationed in the comic shop today, and Tsunade will indeed find no one if she comes to him. No, it's still a long way, but I'm not the only one doing it now. The auntie in the hospital also collected some medical information from other seniors, and the hospital also cooperated with the research institute to set up a medical ninjutsu research room, and many experienced medical personnel participated in the research. Tsunade had a slight smile on her face. Although the original intention of studying medical jutsu was to enhance her recovery ability and then learn the Sage model, but now she really likes the feeling of saving people. Especially those who were not well treated before were cured quickly under her hands. Such a sense of accomplishment was unprecedented. Then congratulations. Akaban was happy for her. It was true that the medical jutsu was not perfect before Tsunade. Many techniques have long been recorded in private collections, but there is no specific name or inheritance, so that they are gradually lost. Now it can be considered they advance the medical system a bit. Tsunade held the comic in her hand and continued, after the last meeting in the morning, I suddenly thought of Kabuto in the manga. Plus you sent medical staff to the front line for rescue, so I rushed over to ask what you think about medical procedures and medical personnel. Kabuto. Let's talk while walking. Akaban glanced at the shop. Due to the manga's recent updates this afternoon, there were quite a lot of people coming and going at the door, and it seemed that it was not easy to talk here. Then let's go to the hospital while talking. Tsunade got up and prepared to walk along the road outside the village to the hospital. She walked a few steps and then continued with what she said just now. A lot of the corpses of our fellow ninjas were sent back yesterday. When I saw that scene, I suddenly thought of Kabuto in your comic. Is it the battle medical ninja? Yes, although your comic hasn't shown his ability yet, but from the plot, I guess he should be a ninja with superb medical skills and strong fighting ability. If this war can be equipped with such a ninja, the casualties will certainly not be so tragic. Tsunade's mood was slightly low. No wonder the medical ninjutsu is strongly supported by the village, and she is not showing any joy in her accomplishment right now. It is estimated that in the past few days, she has seen too many seriously injured people in the hospital, and some may even die in front of her. The village is also determined to reduce casualties. But the land of Uzumaki is now in a mess. Not to mention ordinary ninjas without combat capabilities, even medical personnel with medium and lower ninja levels will be killed by various assassination methods in the land of Uzumaki. In the war, the primary target is naturally the most important person on the other side. Without Tsunade's reminder, Akaban had already seen the corpse that was quietly transported into the hospital. And it's 2 corpses at that. These 2 were corpses that could be transported back if conditions allowed, and there were more of them killed in battle because of the urgency of fighting, and corpses that were not in condition were destroyed on the spot. The requirements of the combat medical ninja are too high. It is very difficult to complete the system in a short time. In this respect, we are not even as good as Sand Village. Tsunade continued. Sand Village is famous for its poisonous method. Poison and medicine are interlinked and coupled with puppet jutsu and other means. Sand Village's current medical ability is definitely the first among the 5 villages. Konoha has no advantage. Akaban took a few steps forward, thinking about the next plot in his mind. In the next plot, apart from a large amount of medical ninjutsu involved in Tsunade's appearance, only the medical ninjutsu and treatment techniques were used to treat Hinata. Maybe it can. The technique used to cure Hinata is the mystical palm technique. The feature of this jutsu is that it can not only heal teammates but also cause considerable damage to the enemy. However, the mystical palm technique is extremely difficult. Even in later medical classes, few people have mastered it. Although there is now a prototype of the mystical palm technique, it is currently only used for first aid and has not been thoroughly developed and utilized. After thinking about it for a long time, Akaban decided to rush to paint the next volume and let Yamano Izumi publish that part as soon as possible. What are you thinking? Seeing that Akaban didn't answer for a long time, Tsunade turned her head and asked with concern. I was thinking if the medical technique can be used on the enemy after a certain amount of use, such as... Akaban stretched out a finger, and then chakra condensed towards his fingertip a little bit. Before long, chakra condensed into a thin blade. Knife. Tsunade was stunned for a moment, and then felt wrong. The knife looked like a scalpel in a hospital. The chakra scalpel can directly cut the muscles and blood vessels in the body without any damage on the outside. However, to complete this operation, I am afraid that a very high control ability of chakra is required. Akaban explained. Tsunade has a considerable medical foundation, and she can definitely understand what the chakra scalpel implies, so he didn't go into details after the brief introduction. She pondered for a long time and said, the chakra scalpel that is directly chakra condensed is very fragile and certainly cannot be used directly, so it should be coordinated with the hand seal. That's right. The perfect chakra scalpel can be used for surgery, and it can also attack the enemy. Of course, its attack method is mainly to cut the opponent's muscles and destroy the opponent's athletic ability. Akaban talked eloquently. He imitated and demonstrated the combat ability Kabuto used from anime in his previous life. Tsunade fell into deep thought. This jutsu is very useful and can even change certain surgical plans to some extent. Of course, the premise is that it can be achieved. She pondered for a long time, then took a deep breath and said, "Anyway, since I can't go to the battlefield, I will develop this technique." On the battlefield. Akaban was speechless for a while. "You are going to die on the battlefield, and if that happens, Uzumaki Maito will surely rampage. But that said, it is estimated that Konoha's medical team has already set off for the border of the Fire Country." He thought for a while and followed Tsunade into the hospital. 4 or 5 corpses. Some have been taken away and buried, otherwise there will be more. The 2 of them are not low profile, and they have a little relationship with the hospital, so no one prevents them from entering here. All the way to the end, Akaban saw the 3rd Hokage. "Lord Hokage." Akaban and Tsunade said hello. Hiruzen nodded silently, glanced at these corpses, dressed in black as if to see off the ninjas. After a long time, he paced away. Tsunade and Akaban followed and walked out of this room. Then the 3rd Hokage said, "I heard from Tsunade, is it true that you have some thoughts about the medical nin system?" It's just some ideas that I thought of for my comics, which are not thoughts." Akaban glared at Tsunade. Unexpectedly, she sold himself in. She was really not honest at all. "I have also read your comics. The characters named Kabuto, Death Soul, and the medical class are all interesting to me, so I want to hear your opinion." Hiruzen walked slowly. "Yes. He keeps up with the pace of the 3rd Hokage." After sorting out his thoughts, Akaban said, "The current mission procedure is generally a 4-person team. If a medical ninja who can adapt to combat can be nurtured, it will definitely reduce the disability rate of the ninja. Of course, but how to achieve it?" Hiruzen is very distressed. These are common questions in recent days. Everyone knows this issue, but how can they nurture medical ninjas who are adaptable to combat? This is the biggest problem. As a current emergency method, the best option is to transform an ordinary ninja. Akaban said. "Convert ordinary ninja." Hiruzen froze for a moment. He never thought about this plan, because medical treatment is quite a hard thing to master and it requires a very high reserve of medical knowledge. Such as Tsunade. If she had not learned a lot of medical knowledge from Uzumaki Maito, it would be impossible for her to master medical jutsu in a short period of time and gradually develop some relatively mature techniques. I think they need to distinguish between battlefield first aid and regular treatment. For example, the most common healing technique. If one from the team understands it, then he can mend his team members' trauma in an emergency. Even if he cannot heal severe injuries like severed limbs, he can at least guarantee his teammates' safety. At Akaban's words, not only Hiruzen was stunned, but Tsunade was also lost in thought. Indeed, there are emergency plans for emergencies. Even if these methods cannot save everyone, they can definitely reduce some unnecessary casualties. Hiruzen froze for a long time, and finally sighed heavily. "It would be great if you had to say this earlier." "Sorry." Akaban lowered his head, apologetic. He did have the opportunity to put it forward earlier, but considering that Tsunade took a huge effort to implement the medical ninjutsu in the comics, he did not feel that he had the ability to change the situation, so he chose to remain silent. No, we are short-sighted. If it were not for the development of the research institute, we would not have thought of innovating and expanding these techniques. These are all your credits. Hiruzen stopped, he turned and bowed deeply. Stubbornness and inertial thinking are the reasons for restricting development, and he deeply realizes this at this time. I will immediately go to sort out the medical technique to see if it could be simplified. Tsunade is very clever and immediately understands the main points of first aid on the battlefield. Simple, fast and easy to master. Then Akaban hadn't asked yet, but the third Hokage had already left quickly. He is going to a meeting to discuss which ninjas are suitable for learning battlefield medical ninjutsu, and then select people who are strong enough to enter the Uzumaki battlefield. Even if it is impossible for everyone to learn medical jutsu, at least with enough knowledge, they can at least save themselves and reduce the disability and death caused by trauma. This time they were very efficient, and within an hour, everyone had discussed which ninjas were suitable for learning battlefield first aid. At the same time, ninjas who are good at medical jutsu, such as Koharu and Tsunade, have begun to study. What technique is suitable for the battlefield? It is quick to work, easy to learn, and best for everyone to master. No one has developed such a technique yet, so the simplest chakra stimulation treatment can only be modified and simplified, that is, the healing technique. Of course. Not only the R&D team, but when the practice methods, principles, and simple treatment techniques of the healing technique are all compiled into a book, the temporary transformation battlefield first aid ninja is also gathered. Time is urgent, so everyone's choice of ninja is simple and straightforward. The most demanding medical technique is chakra control ability, and among ordinary ninjas, those who have strong chakra control ability are undoubtedly those genjutsu type ninjas and mental manipulation ninja. For example, the Yai clan, Kurama clan and Yamanaka clan. In fact, the first batch of first aid ninjas was selected from these three families, plus some civilians, who were good at chakra control, to form the first batch of battlefield medical teams. When Akaban got the news, it was already the next afternoon. This day, he was speeding up the update, and the result was very gratifying. In just one day, he and his shadow clone drew a full 10 chapters of Naruto. With this, the plot has officially reached the prelude to the Konoha destruction plan. The plot in the comic arrives on the eve of the duel between Sasuke and Gaara. Although Konoha's collapse plan has not yet officially opened, a lot of the foreshadowing can be seen, not to mention the plot of the Hyuga clan before. This part seems to need to be sent to the third Hokage for review. Akaban fell into thought. Since the third Hokage repeatedly emphasized this some times ago. If this time he ignores his instructions again, even if he is valued by the third Hokage, he will still become irritated. I should send it. If it doesn't work, I can only change it. Anyway, it's not a big problem. He picked up the comic and headed towards the Hokage building. At this time, Sarutobi Hiruzen is really busy. As the third Hokage, who is known as the Ninja Court Academician, although he doesn't dabble in medical ninjutsu, but he has a certain understanding of it. He may not help much in the research and development of medical ninjutsu, but he is good at summarizing and simplifying the techniques. So Akaban went to the office and didn't see the third Hokage at all. To assist in researching medical ninjutsu, he moved his office to a small building near the hospital. As a last resort, he can only use his perception ability. After a few minutes, he finally found the so-called small building. This is no longer a small building. It is just a temporary shed. Outside the shed, many ninjas are practicing medical techniques. There are sheep and small animals such as mice and rabbits. Needless to say, looking at the tragic condition of these rats and rabbits, you must know that it must have been sent from Orochimaru, while Tsunade, Utatane Koharu and other ninjas who are good at medical ninjutsu are in charge of the guidance. Ha, Akaban. Tsunade looked up and saw Akaban holding 2 volumes of comics in his hand, which looked strange. What happened? Turning her head, Utatane Koharu frowned slightly. Akaban bowed slightly and then pointed to the 3rd Hokage office. The female elder nodded and motioned for Akaban to pass. Knowing that she had destroyed the atmosphere, Tsunade quickly apologized and then continued to do her own thing. Before entering his office, Hiruzen already knew Akaban had arrived. Although he is not a ninja with perception expertise, as a Hokage, his sensibility cannot be underestimated. In addition, with his crystal ball jutsu, he has been paying attention to ninja medical training, so when Akaban arrived, he already understood his purpose. When Akaban entered the shed, Hiruzen drank and asked, "Are you looking for me for anything? There are parts of the plot of the comics that you need to read." In special moments, unnecessary etiquette can be omitted. Therefore, Akaban did not salute, but took the comic directly and put it on the temporary desk of the 3rd Hokage. Hiruzen took it over, and then he looked shocked. "Unbelievable, you drew 10 chapters in one go. What are you talking about?" Akaban is somewhat helpless. He finally worked hard on painting this, but after submitting it, he immediately encountered such remarks. Thus, there was a burst of hearty laughter in the office. But after a while, Hiruzen could not laugh anymore. Because the clan and family division system of the Hyuga clan is bloody exposed in the plot. This is not slander, but a reflection of reality. In the separation of the family, there are many ninjas who are unwilling but helpless and can only obey. As Neji said, their fate seems to have been destined by nature. Seeing this, Hiruzen fell silent, knowing why Akaban had sent it here especially. "You child, really? Hiruzen has a headache." If it was before yesterday happened, he might not hesitate to let Akaban correct it, but yesterday, Akaban gave very important suggestions about the medical ninja problem, and these ideas are all from Akaban's comics. If he limits these, I am afraid that the spirituality of comics will disappear. He put down the comic with a headache and rubbed his temples. These problems do exist in the Hyuga clan, but they have been maintained for hundreds of years. Wanting to change it is not something that happens overnight. Every new generation may have the determination to change their tradition at the beginning, but when he enjoys the conveniences and benefits of the clan family, no matter what pressure and persecution, he will gradually obey the destiny of the clan family. Just like Hyuga Hayashi. Maybe for a moment, he has all kinds of family affection in his heart, but when Neji shows hatred for the clan and its children, as the main family head, he will not hesitate to do it. As for Branch House, they can only choose to obey or die freely. Hiruzen was silent for a long time, unable to make up his mind to agree or disagree. In a sense, the comic did not explicitly oppose this system, but only described the situation of the family branch house through the role of Neji. Your previous plot has clearly drawn Neji's hatred of the main house. And if you don't draw these, the problem is even greater, so just do it this way. After considering it for a long time, he finally agreed. Regardless of the presence of these 2 volumes, when Neji beat Hinata with bruises in the previous qualifiers, he already showed his strong hatred for the main house. However, the Hyuga family did not express their views on this, which shows that they are also in a wait-and-see attitude. In this chapter, Neji's attitude remains the same, but the truth about the clan is revealed, but instead explains everything in front. It happens that the Hyuga clan is quite unruly lately. With the Uchiha clearing their inside, they took refuge in the village, and obtained power after the reorganization of the gods. So this time, the Hyuga clan also reached out for power. Although it was not a big problem for Hokage and the higher-ups of Konoha, this approach made them very uncomfortable. They didn't give the power they seek, so they plan to grab it. With Hyuga's approach of snatching, a warning is not a bad thing. After Sarutabi Hiruzen understood this section, he picked up the comic again and continued to look down. The most sensitive point of this chapter is the plot of the Hyuga family. Many other plots are foreshadowing. Hiruzen turned to the front pages and reviewed it. Until the last chapters, he fell into deep thought again. As the Konoha destruction plan approaches, there are more and more clues in the plot. Before the trip, Baki met Kabuto and after that killed Gekko Hayate. Dressed in disguise and entered the venue. A series of psychological activities by Baki made Kankuro voluntarily surrender. This series of clues is enough to show that Hidden Sand Village is cooperating with Orochimaru to work on Konoha, and Gaara, as Jinchuriki, is a very important part of it. He thought to himself, if the Konoha can think of directly dealing with Jinchuriki, will Hidden Sand Village directly dispatch Jinchuriki to grab the site? In that case, the plan to unblock Jinchuriki will be invalid, and the ninja lurking in the Land of Rivers are basically unable to resist Shukaku's power. Although the Land of River is chaotic, the environment is very good, and it can definitely improve the barren status of the country of the wind. By then, the Land of Wind will undoubtedly be stronger. Hiruzen hesitated for a while and asked, Akaban, how is the sealing jutsu on your side, have you mastered them? Not very good, to be honest, it's hard to learn. Akaban said honestly. So, forget it. Hiruzen shook his head and handed the comic back to him. Sealing jutsu is indeed quite difficult to learn. If it is just a simple sealing technique, then most people can master it. But if it's a sealing jutsu for one-tailed beast, this is not a job Akaban or Uzumaki Tomiko can accomplish. Then I will leave first. Akaban excused himself. He also had to go to Yamano Izumi place to print the comics as soon as possible and redeem the medical ninjutsu as soon as possible. Okay. Hiruzen nodded, still thinking about Shukaku's problem in his mind. There are only a handful of masters with the sealing ability in Konoha, and they can't dispatch Uzumaki Maito, so the only way is to dispatch a sealing team from Anbu. Leaving the temporary office shed, Akaban hurriedly sent a clone to the factory, and at the same time opened the system panel to check if there were more ninjutsu exchanges on his list. Although it's only the third Hokage who read the comics, it may be possible to make ninjutsu appear on the list. Opening the panel, the points directly increased by 4 to 500, and more than that, when he opens the exchange list. The 8 trigrams 64 palms, 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven, mystical palm technique, etc. were directly refreshed at the top. It succeeded. Akaban took a deep breath and checked the points required by the mystical palm technique. A level, 500 points. It's not too much, redeem. Akaban did not hesitate. With more than 500 points now, the daily income was doubled, and he can exchange it easily. Redeem instantly. A huge amount of memories flooded into his mind, and these memories were all how to use and the precise control of the mystical palm technique and the amount of chakra used. Mystical palm technique is different from ordinary medical techniques. Excessive chakra input will not only fail to have a therapeutic effect but will destroy the circulation in the opposition's body and cause coma. But even though he had these memories of the mystical palm technique, it did not mean that Akaban had mastered vast medical knowledge. He is only very experienced in the use of the mystical palm technique, but medical treatment is not just as simple as using the mystical palm technique to recover. Although mystical palm technique is powerful, it can only cope with some diseases. The real illness is very complicated. And he needed to learn all kinds of medical knowledge to be called a master of medical nin. Akaban tried using the mystical palm jutsu. This superb medical ninjutsu, which requires vast knowledge about medicine and medicine skills to master, can be easily mastered with the system's ability. Its effect and power against the enemy are much stronger than the medical techniques possessed at this stage. But in this way, the problem comes. How can he hand over the mystical palm jutsu to the village? He is not a professional medical staff, and it seems impossible to develop such advanced medical ninjutsu. Akaban fell into thought. Then he turned and returned to the shed. Tsunade and the others are still teaching the rest of the ninja about the medical techniques, but after looking around, Akaban was surprised to find that Shinyai was among them. So Akaban couldn't help but approach him and asked, "Why are you here, Shin? Weren't you assigned to the guard department?" Yeah, but they still asked me to come to learn medical jutsu, also if the reserve department opens, I still have to come to the reserve department. It's depressing. Not just one department but 3. Akaban consoles him sincerely upon hearing it. In addition, he plans to train Shin to become a server for his LAN in the future, and he didn't know if his current mastery in illusion is adequate. But if he reaches the level where he can freely construct illusions, it will be much easier. Why did you come back? Tsunade walked over quickly, paying special attention as she lowers her voice. Akaban pointed at these ninjas who practiced recovering jutsu, then pointed at Tsunade, motioning her to come out with him. Tsunade didn't know what Akaban was going to do, but based on her understanding of Akaban, this guy was too lazy to come here if it's not important, so it was absolutely impossible for him to look for trouble or suddenly come to her and asked for a date. She greeted Shinyai from a distance, and then walked out of the training hall and went outside with Akaban. Is there a problem? During this period of time, in order to draw comics, I went to see a lot of information about medical techniques in the village, and I found that some medical techniques actually have the possibility of growth, but everyone did not focus on this ninjutsu before. Yesterday, I had a whim on trying it and a good medical jutsu has been developed. After Akaban finished speaking, chakra was condensed in his palm. The difference between mystical palm technique and other medical techniques is that it can be treated in a separate space. Even though he was a short step away from Tsunade, Tsunade already felt the chakra coming from Akaban's palm. This force is disrupting her chakra guidance. Of course, Tsunade knew that this was not attacked ninjutsu. The attack is just another function of it. The real function is to treat the wounds through the air, and this effect can not only separate the air but also through the human body, through the skin to treat the wounds of the internal organs. But this requires extremely high medical knowledge. She took a deep breath and said, "Has this technique been tested?" "I just developed it from the recorded technique, and I only tried it on myself," Akaban explained. I'm going to experiment with it immediately. If possible, can you help me on the side? Of course. Although Tsunade had experienced it for a moment and thought of the basic usage of mystical palm technique, her movement was not as delicate as the developer Akaban in some uses. She went back and talked to Utatane Koharu. Upon hearing it, Utatane Koharu attaches great importance to it, not only allowing Tsunade and Akaban to go to the trial but also sent 3 or 4 hospital medical staff to follow. Medical ninjutsu is used on companions, so every ninjutsu must undergo rigorous experiments and verifications, and only after it is determined that it will not cause side effects on the patients, will it be officially recorded and promoted. There are many kinds of experimental objects. First of all, it is naturally standard fish. Tsunade, who was familiar with it, quickly separated the fish's body with a scalpel, and then let Akaban perform the treatment. The result is obvious. Mystical palm technique can easily cure the human injury, let alone a mere fish. In just a few seconds, the fish will be as good as ever, alive and kicking. The medical staff nearby was shocked. Kurama Akaban is actually good at medical ninjutsu, and his level is much higher than theirs. No one believed it before, but now. Seeing is believing. It's very fast, and it can take effect in an empty space. Tsunade wrote down the next sentence and then continued to observe. In terms of speed, mystical palm technique is much faster than ordinary treatment techniques. As for the specific effects, it is temporarily impossible to verify. Next, the test subjects slowly upgraded. Ordinary mice and rabbits that were on the verge of death when they came out of Orochimaru lab, and Tsunade's small notebook recorded a lot of data. She basically confirmed the effect of the mystical palm technique. Faster, stronger and better. Of course, she understood the harm of healing jutsu better after experiencing it firsthand. It is medical ninjutsu, but it has extremely high requirements for chakra control. A little extra chakra may cause a great deviation in the treatment effect. This has been verified by the rest of the medical staff. After using the same technique, they not only failed to cure the fish but instead left the fish in a half-dead state. But it has nothing to do with Akaban. Tsunade and the others just couldn't master it proficiently at the beginning. They certainly have a deeper understanding of how to use medical ninjutsu itself than Akaban. So if Akaban continues teaching them about it, it wouldn't take long for them to surpass Akaban. He came out of the makeshift training ground and saw many people coming out of the hospital. These people are probably the families of the wounded and the dead. I already did my best. Akaban told himself with a heavy feeling. How can there be no casualties in war? For the war in the Uzumaki Kingdom, he took out a lot of ninjutsu and actively promoted medical ninjutsu. He did everything he should do except for not going to fight in person. He sighed, not looking at these worrying scenes. Back to the comic shop, the shadow clone who went to the factory responded with the message that he successfully delivered the comic to the factory. However, Izumi Yamano has already begun to load a new batch, which means that the 2 volumes he just sent cannot be printed in time. This batch is only 1 volume for Naruto and One Piece. It's worth mentioning that the story of One Piece has also reached the exciting part where Orono Zoro confronts Hawkeye, the world's #1 swordsman. The battle between Zoro and Hawkeye was wonderful and shocking. In the end, Hawkeye's ability to slash the big ship with one sword was the best ending to the departure. It's a pity that Sakumo is not in the village, otherwise he would be very excited. Akaban feels a little regretful. For the time being, one piece only has iron fans such as Sakumo and Yuwu, and the others are in a state where it doesn't matter if they don't look at it, which is completely different from the popularity of Naruto. This is understandable. Before entering the Grand Line, One Piece was in the preparatory stage of recruiting people. Big characters like Hawkeye were just showing up, and the real excitement was still behind. Izumi Yamano caravan came very slowly. Akaban didn't wait for them but instead waited for an uninvited guest. A big shot from Hyuga. And it's the patriarch of Hyuga clan, who looks modest and friendly but is actually very deep like a city. Greeting Patriarch Hyuga. Yeah. Akaban walked into the lounge, and then made a gesture to Meizazu Hyuga. The meaning is self-evident. Meizazu Hyuga smiled faintly, and walked forward with his hands under his hands, and walked to the trail ahead. After he took a seat, Meizazu Hyuga seemed to ask casually, Akaba, how is your comic? Fortunately, although Konoha has a lot fewer people and sales have fallen a bit, the overall situation is still good. Akaban smiled slightly. Well, my clan is not very good. Recently, there are more and more voices in Branch House. Meizazu Hyuga had a calm tone, even with a slight smile. Had it not been for his identity, Akaban would feel that the other party was just saying it to him to complain about his own family affairs. But in fact, he came to settle the accounts. Do you want to say that my comic plot affected the mind of Branch House? If it's yesterday, Akaban would have to think about some countermeasures before answering, but today he doesn't need to. With the third Hokage on his back on this matter, he doesn't need to worry about these. Meizazu Hyuga shakes his head left and right, and then his eyes suddenly squinted. This tone. Something is wrong. He moved his fingers on the table, and after a second or two, he said, there were these voices in the clan before. It's just that your comic tells what they want to say, and doesn't mean to blame you. It's good if it didn't cause misunderstandings. In fact, Neji's plot will be reversed, and it's not to slander Hyuga clan. It is just that my drawing speed is not fast enough to cause such a misunderstanding. Akaban apologized with the opportunity to avoid disappointment. It turns out that there is a reversal, so I hope everyone will be happy in the end. With a smile on his face, Meizazu Hyuga said. Because he has noticed something is wrong. Although Akaban is a disciple of Danza and has businesses such as his comic, in the eyes of the Hyuga clan, he is just a newly promoted special jonin. The thing that worries him the most is that Akaban is very cunning, always taking advantage of the general trend to contribute to certain things. It is simply another Danza. For example, the previous Uchiha incident. And just now, he had a similar feeling. Meizazu Hyuga began to reflect, Akaban, how could he have the courage to speak like this? Could it be the third Hokage? After thinking of this, Meizazu Hyuga realized everything in his mind for an instant. Uchiha chose to take refuge, and the Hyuga clan, instead of expressing it, continued to demand power. Wasn't this like how the Uchiha clan before? Before long, a few cold sweats dripped from his forehead. Previously, he and the elders of the clan only wanted to oppose the Uchiha, and the village would not take them seriously, but they forgot that Uchiha's current position had changed. They eliminated the civil strife in their inner circle and became Hokage's people, compared with the Hyuga clan who are the real outsiders. The chess is wrong. How can an outsider reach out and ask for food from another family? Isn't it the same as robbery? Meizaru Hyuga thoroughly understood, and while regretting in his heart, he began to think about countermeasures. The reconnaissance team can't take it, this wave of power must be relinquished. In addition, On the Anbu side, Hyuga had to compromise too. Masaru Hyuga's thoughts turned extremely fast. After trying to understand this, he immediately turned around and said goodbye to Akaban. There are still some things I need to do in the clan, I will leave first. I would also like to thank Uncle Masaru for coming to me today. Before, I only cared about the plot in my mind, but I didn't expect it to affect the Hyuga clan and cause misunderstanding. Akaban bowed slightly. Masaru Hyuga cursed secretly in his heart, but on the surface, he has the face of a kind uncle. No need to worry, I will explain these misunderstandings to the clan and will not let the members of the Hyuga clan trouble you. Thank you then. Uncle Masaru, why don't you stay and read comics for a while? It seems to have just been updated. Akaban enthusiastically said. No, there are things in the clan I need to do that make me busy, so I just need to take a few books home. Masaru Hyuga had a gentle expression when he said that, and could not see the slightest irritation on his face at all. Okay, Brother Yunling, choose 10 recent updates for Uncle Masaru. 10 books. Masaru Hyuga's left eyelid twitched. Although it is not expensive, he didn't think Akaban would give him this many. The problem is, I can't refuse it. If the dignified Hyuga patriarch had to care about the mere 1,000 ryo, and if it was spread out, then it would make Uchiha's people laugh and mock them. Master Masaru, these are your 10 books. Although Akaban is not respectful to Masaru, Kurama Yunlane can't do that. Status is especially important between ninjas and ordinary people. Masaru Hyuga slightly nodded, took over the 10-volume book, then glanced at Akaban and turned to leave. I forgot to ask him if he wants one piece, it's a pity. When he left, Akaban said to herself. Kurama Yunlane was a little helpless. But at the same time, he felt strange that the patriarch of the Hyuga clan seemed so good to talk, it was really incredible. It's late today. You can close the door in advance and go back to rest after finalizing the goods sent by Yamano-san. After Akaban said that, he was ready to go home to sleep. I've been busy this day, and there is no time to sleep. Even the time for a nap is reduced to only a dozen minutes. Life is too difficult. After going home for dinner, he fell asleep after taking a shower and went straight until dawn. He slept comfortably, but some people stayed up all night. The Research Institute, not only Tsunade but also Orochimaru participated in the evaluation of the mystical palm technique. This medical ninjutsu is too important, to the point where they have to pay attention to it, and its difficulty is unprecedented in the medical ninjutsu that they are currently exposed to. Of course, difficulty refers not to the medical treatment itself, but to the control of chakra. Even a little more, or a little less, the effect is completely different. That fellow Akaban, throwing a ninjutsu he himself created and causing us a headache, why don't we catch him? Orochimaru said as he was a little tired. Although it is an experiment that he loved doing, but it is completely different from helping others to record data that he doesn't understand and researching topics that interest him. He has been very busy with the preparation department recently, and he also has to draw comics, read books, collect information, and study ninjutsu. He must be too busy. Maybe like us, he didn't sleep much at all. Tsunade sighed as if she felt tired for Akaban. Hearing her defending Akaban, Orochimaru was speechless. Too busy. Didn't sleep much. I won't believe it. It's only Tsunade would be so blind to Akaban. He sighed softly and sorted out the data he had just collected. From this pile of data, He wanted to find the output of chakra with the best healing effect, and because the war had already begun, he could not rest at all. I really need to find an assistant. Contrary to Tsunad's conjecture, Akaban slept beautifully and woke up refreshed in the morning. When he comes to the comic shop, he can see many customers coming in and out, and he feels even happier. This is life. When he got up this morning, the panel's points soared by 500 or 600. Although it is only slightly lower than Sarutobi Hiruzen, but as the third Hokage, of course, the price is not the same. After deducting the points used to redeem the mystical palm technique yesterday, he now has nearly 2,000. Fukasaku Sage and the Toads have contributed a lot to these 2,000 points. He exchanged 7 mental points, rounded up his mental power, and spent only 200 points. 120 mental power. At first glance, it seems that there is no difference, but if he uses his perception ability, it is not difficult to find the difference. The range is larger, and the perceived content is finer. This is a manifestation of spiritual growth. Although he spent a lot of points, Akaban is satisfied, and the visible progress is better than training all day. After he enters the lounge of the comics shop, he easily split up a shadow clone and asks him to help draw the comic update. In the following plot, the Konoha destruction plan officially started, and the next volume is better as long as a single volume is printed and published, but it won't work since Orochimaru officially commenced his attack. After Orochimaru started, he used the taboo power of impure world reincarnation. If it is a single release, I am afraid that the third Hokage wouldn't agree and let him publish it without changing something. Therefore, Akaban's idea is to publish and print the Konoha destruction plan plot in one go. It is 30 pages. The advantage of this is that the plot is coherent, and everyone's attention will not be all on the technique of impure world reincarnation. The disadvantage is that he will be very tired. In order to rush his work, Akaban had to do it himself. Of course, it's only on Naruto book that he will do it himself, but for One Piece, he doesn't have to. As long as the daily chapter book is updated, he can leave it to his clone. Akaban can now stably resist the consumption of 2 clones a day, which is absolutely no problem for him. All day long, except for the necessary meals, Akaban spent the rest of the day working hard. The results are also quite gratifying. In a day's work, he and the shadow clones have completed the content of chapter 1/15. But when he thinks that he still has 3/4 of his work left, Akaban can't help crying. Life is too difficult. It is not only difficult for him, but also for Izumi Yamato. He had just printed the contents of volume 10 in one go and finally got the news from Kurama Yunlane that he would accumulate 30 chapters in one go before updating. This kind of publication, not only the quantity, but the difficulty of publication and compilation has been directly raised several levels, but since it's his partner that had such a requirement, he can only clench his teeth. But the Hyuga clan. With the release of this volume, the Hyuga clan main house and branch house systems information are also spreading in Konoha. Many people understand that there are such rules in Hyuga clan: branch house, caged bird, and curse seal that can only be lifted by death. Although they are afraid of the strength of the Hyuga clan, and everyone dares not discuss it in public, but they can't stop the discussion in it in private. Before Neji's appearance, there were not many people from the Hyuga clan who read comics, but since the role of Hyuga Neji, the number of people who read comics has skyrocketed. Until now. Brother, have you read today's Naruto update? How could I not read it? Kurama Akaban, this guy is really. Only the people at Branch House know the status of Hyuga Branch House. In the story of Neji in the comics, whether it is a genius from the Branch House or mediocre, they can instantly relate to his role. Because of Neji's childhood, how is it different from them? Although their parents did not choose to die like Hisashi, there are many who died in the war. In comparison, the main house has always been well protected, so there were very few casualties in the war. And this is the difference. Sigh, if our family is really going to have a genius like Neji, I am afraid that in the end, they can only be buried. How can they allow a genius to fall into the Branch family? Are they afraid that genius will surpass the main clan? Some Branch family couldn't help but mock. Pshaw. Hearing him slandering the main house, his partner is anxious. If such words were heard by the main family, death would not be enough for them, and it was certain they would activate the bird cage to make them suffer some pain. I'm afraid of anything else. And although I can't choose my birth, but I can choose how to die. The man yelled, without our Branch family, what is the use of the noble lords of the clan? Will Konoha needs a group of such people? Kazuto, you are too presumptuous. An indifferent voice came from not far away, and the patriarch of the Hyuga Branch family walked out slowly with tired, confused, and helpless in his eyes. Patriarch, do you even think our family should be like this? Hyuga Kazuto did not understand. The patriarch is the eldest brother of Meizazu Hyuga, and he wanted to say this a long time ago. But he didn't have the courage before. Recently, his younger brother was asked to become a guard at the gate. Inheritance secret jutsu has nothing to do with them. He didn't realize it until the plot was written and saw Hyuga Hisashi, Neji's father said, die freely. A bird in a cage can trap the body and spirit, but not his will. It's not as simple as you think. Hyuga Meizazu sighed. It's easy to say this thing, but without the division of the family, the clan is indeed like a rootless pedigree, and will only dissipate in history in the end. But by doing this, the Hyuga clan will be gone. Although the main house is like an enemy, they still are their relatives. Although this family relationship is separated by the main house and the branch house, they are relatives on the bloodline. What good is it for the family to cut off their inheritance? However, how can most of the people underneath consider these? What everyone thinks of is how they are oppressed and bullied, but the people of main house are born aloof and distant, like a god controlling their life and death. Why? Seeing that their patriarch had such an attitude, the clansmen who had been noisy before became silent. It's not despairing, but it seems to erupt in silence. We want an explanation. If it is important things, the family punishment for our mistakes is excusable, but how did the clan treat us? Shouted another member of the branch house. Hyuga Meizazu himself also was very confused. In fact, he has thought about these things in his mind, but is there any way? Is it possible to abandon the family, ignore the family rules and commit suicide collectively? It's too drastic. After thinking about it for a while, he finally made a decision. I will go to the main house if I can't come back. Everyone doesn't make trouble, living is more important than anything else. In his tone, he knows his death will come. Patriarch, let's go together. Yes, go together, we want to go together. Everyone stayed for a while, then all clamored. Not long after, the rest of the branch family filed out, and the clan leader of the branch house looked at the crowd. Seeing this scene, Hyuga Meizazu was stunned. Meizazu, now is a good opportunity, let's go together, said one of the eldest elders from the branch family. He was very old and could hardly walk. He had to rely on other people's support to get out of the house, but he knew better that unless a Hokage who was determined to change the position of the branch family appeared, there would be no better chance than now. For the future of their children and grandchildren, they are willing to gamble their lives. Upheaval is often accompanied by sacrifice. Hyuga's infighting, in an instant spread throughout Konoha, attracted attention from all parties, among which the most taking pleasure in other people's misfortune was Uchiha clan. When Uchiha bleed and cut their meat, the Hyuga clan often laughed at them. Times change, and now it's their turn. Outside the Hyuga sect's house, the crowd was immense, and a team of 100 people gathered around the door. Patriarch Maezaza, what are you doing? The gatekeeper was frightened by this predicament. Since the establishment of the branch family, there has never been a dispute like this. Let them in. An indifferent voice came from inside the door, and immediately the two gatekeepers turned their heads and saw that the head of the main clan, Maezazu Hyuga, and many elders gathered together. Under what circumstances has Hyuga changed? Maezazu Hyuga bowed deeply, and then slowly stepped into the door of the main house, and the old man of Branch House was tremblingly helped in. Although he is from Branch House, he has almost devoted his life to the clan, and no one dares to neglect him. Even in the midst of the civil turmoil, Maezazu Hyuga still respected him and brought a chair in person. Uncle Yohia, please sit down. Ha ha ha, then this old man thanked the patriarch. The old man sat down and sighed softly when he saw the arrangement. With him as the center, Branch House and Main House confront each other. When Maezazu Hyuga saw this scene, he felt weak in his heart. After talking with Akaban, he focused on the village side and has been negotiating with the village, but he didn't think that there was a problem on the Branch House side. With so many people wanting to oppose it, how difficult is the main house? He looked at each of their faces, and in the end, he cast his gaze on Hinata Maezaza. His expression and tone were calm, and he said calmly, "You really want to oppose the clan? It's not that we want to oppose, but the main house doesn't give us a way to survive." People from the Branch House gritted their teeth and stood up first. They have already committed themselves to nothing, and were willing to die for their family's future. Maezazu Hyuga ignored them. Instead, he kept staring at Maezazu Hyuga. They are actually brothers. However, after they become 3 or 4 years old, it seems that there is no deep emotion between the two. At this time, Maezazu stood in front of him, making him in a daze. He pursed his lips and asked, "Maezazu, you really want to oppose? Clan leader, what does opposing mean? Does the main house should dominate the Branch House, and we Branch House should treat you as a mermaid while we become cattle as horses? In the first place, we came here to petition and negotiate collectively. But in your eyes, any behavior that disobeys your understanding is called the opposition." Hyuga Maezaza's tone was indifferent. He thought about it several times, but when he really confronted his brother and the elders, all his worries suddenly vanished. "Patriarch, Branch House doesn't want to reverse it, but the system within the clan does have problems," Yohia Hyuga said. "The main house and Branch House systems exist to ensure the safe inheritance of the bloodline, not to enslave the clansmen. You have misunderstood." An elder stood up and explained. However, who would believe this? Seeing a bunch of indifferent, cold eyes, he couldn't help being a little timid after speaking and then took a few steps back. Born in a Branch House, no matter how genius you are still a slave to the caged bird. No matter how powerful you will not be able to touch the Bakugan's real secret jutsu. If you try to learn it on your own, you will even face great risks. In addition, elder, why are you not from branch house? Is your strength much stronger, or is your bloodline nobler than ours? Hyuga Maezaza asked, leaving many elders speechless. Bloodline. They are all from the same family, regardless of the difference between the main house and branch house, there is no distinction in their blood at all. Let's go to the conference room first. Everyone is from the Hyuga clan, so we might as well do something to talk about it. Don't be so angry. Maezazu Hyuga pondered for a while and gradually understood. Both Maezazu and Yohir have done nothing wrong. Obviously, their purpose is not really to remove the caged bird. They know very well that the caged bird is impossible to remove. Then these two goals are worth considering. Of course. He said this remark not only to the people in branch house but also to the elders in main house. No one knows these people better than him. Stubborn and self-righteous. Yes, patriarch. It's impossible for everyone to go to the conference room. The branch house selected some representatives and entered the conference room with the people from main house. Everyone is determined to die, so there is nothing to fear. Stepping into the door of the conference room, the expressions of several elders suddenly changed. It is the time of war. And you are doing this kind of thing completely regardless of the overall situation. You are so stupid that you were played around by the little devil of the Kurama clan. Elder. I said everyone should not be angry, put aside the so-called clan status, sit down and talk as equals. Maezazu Hyuga's tone was cold. Or, are you disregarding my position as the patriarch? But one more sentence, your position as an elder is abolished. Maezazu Hyuga said coldly. Hyuga Maezaza and Yohir showed a sneer at the same time, bullying them but full of fear of losing their position. They simply lost the face of their ancestors and the family. It is due to these black sheep that led the main house and branch house to where they are today. I have read the comics too. I know what's going on, so will I just ask, what do you want? Maezazu Hyuga is rarely harsh, and his attitude is completely different from usual. At this moment of life and death of their family members, if you play with balance and methods, you will only get yourself in. The significance of the clan family lies in supervision and inheritance, so why use blood as the inheritance qualification? Maezazu Hyuga sat on his knees. This is the rule handed down by our ancestors. The inheritance is systematic, so there will be no bloodshed and sacrifice when power changes. Maezazu Hyuga replied. In other words, regardless of talents and innate talents, as long as they are born early, they can be clan leader or elder, sitting in high positions and enjoying various privileges, while the younger generation of branch house can only be geniuses in name, sitting underneath and being enslaved. The whole hall was in an uproar when the words were said. Some of the elders were furious and wanted to stand up and fight them, but the warning made by the patriarch was vivid, and these elders did not dare to do anything. The old man tapped his fingers on the table and slowly said, Maezazu, don't be killed with a stick. Some elders have indeed made a lot of effort for the prosperity of the family. Old man Yohir seems to be speaking for the elders, but the word some is very significant. Who are those some? Think for yourself. Very well, I understand what you mean. Whether there is Kurama Akaban and his comics, these things will happen sooner or later. It's just ahead of time, and it will be solved at the same time. Maezazu Hyuga said indifferently, what you imply is that you are not satisfied with the elder system, so just go ahead. Except for the patriarch position, the elder's position will be judged by ability. How about those with the ability to go up and those unsuccessful go down? Yes. The old man of branch house slightly nodded. As for the inheritance of the patriarch, this cannot be moved, otherwise our family will be in chaos. Meizuzu Hyuga said. Although the remaining elders are a bit scared, they are not too worried. After all, the main house has an advantage over branch house. Because they know that the branch house Bakugan is flawed and they can't master their core secret jutsu. However, patriarch, in fact, it doesn't have to be so troublesome. Since there is only one person in the main house successor, except for the actual inheritor, everyone else should be marked as with the caged bird. So there are no main house and branch house, only the clan leader of Hyuga clan. Hyuga Meizuzu said as he looked at the elders and sneered. Patriarch, this. The elders were shocked. Except for clan leader, everyone has a caged bird. Doesn't that mean that their fate will be the same as those from the branch house? The elders and great elders from the main house began to panic as their position in the clan was passed down at the beginning, especially the great elders whose position was only second to the patriarch. Patriarch, no, the main house and branch house are the wisdom of our clan for thousands of years. We can't throw it away. The great elder was scared. They are the ones who give the curse of the caged bird to the branch house. And no one knows the horror of the caged birds better than them. Don't agree, never agree. Why not? Is there anything I said wrong? Great elder, as you said earlier, you have to take care of the overall situation. Meizuzu Hyuga said with a smile. All the family members outside are his bargaining chips, and the clansmen fighting on the battlefield are also his bargaining chips. At this moment, the heart of the branch house was finally twisted into a rope, and he must strive for the greatest benefit. Ha ha ha, Meizuzu said it well. From now on there is no need to divide the family. Everyone is a member of the Hyuga clan. So why divide each other instead of protecting the patriarch together? Old man Yohir laughed loudly. Thanks to Meizuzu Hyuga's words, he can laugh so happily at his age. In one phrase, Meizuzu Hyuga was silent for a while. Since there is no possibility of the caged bird to be alleviated, turning all the clansmen without a caged bird except for the patriarch and the successor into a caged bird is not a bad suggestion. With only the clan leader not possessing a caged bird, naturally, there is no difference between main house and branch house. Of course, it doesn't matter who the elder is. Because everyone has a caged bird above their heads, no one is more noble than anyone. Of course, the strong will go up and the weak will go down. However, the question is, what should he do if the patriarch's successor is vacated with so many people in the family? Meizuzu Hyuga clasped his left fingers together, weighing the gains and losses in his heart. After a long time, he opened his eyes and said, "Okay, just as you said." No. You are really confused, you are trying to alter the foundation of the family. The grand elder went crazy and started talking nonsense. Having been marked with a caged bird, I will never allow it. He got up, but before he released his chakra, a figure came behind him. With the use of his palm, blood sprayed like a column. The great elder died. He was old, so when he was hit by the true left gentle fist in his central vein, it's impossible for the great elder to survive. I will personally put in the technique of caged birds to all elders and great elders. Whoever opposes it can stand up. Meizuzu Hyuga closed his eyes. No one dares to object, because someone is dead and it's a great representation for those who will oppose the patriarch. Although it's very cruel, this is the best solution. At this moment, Hyuga Meizuzu's mind was inexplicably complicated, and he didn't know how to say it, especially to the third Hokage, Kurama Akaban. Is this also in your calculations? When all the Hyuga clansmen receive a caged bird marked, will the Hyuga clan weaken? Not necessarily. In order to ensure that Bakugan does not leak, the main house family rarely goes to the front line. Most of the time it's the branch house who fights on the front line. From the perspective of the village, the Hyuga clan is not weak. However, the diversion of the family is flawed, and the overall strength of the Hyuga clan has indeed declined. Third Hokage, Kurama Akaban, you won. He sighed inwardly. After that, he got up and said, tell everyone the news. Starting today, everyone except the patriarch and heirs will be marked with a caged bird. Correspondingly, the secret jutsu, which was previously owned by main house, will unlock its restrictions so that all clansmen can learn all the clan secret jutsu. Yes. Unlike the elders, Meizuzu Hyuga relaxed physically and mentally and was quite satisfied with the result. With all the grand elders and elders being dragged into the chamber to accept the caged bird seal, and having the restriction of the secret jutsu being lifted, from now on many can compete for the elders' position. Of course, it cannot be said that there is no regret. For example, the caged bird is not really lifted at all. But to mention these, not only would Hyuga Meizuzu not agree, but it would also unite the main house to fight back and thoroughly kill their group, which resulted in a bloodbath. Hokage-sama, I am here again. After 3 days, Akaban finally got the update of the 30 chapters and went to the old place to look for the third Hokage for review. But before he can finish speaking, Hiruzen pointed to the stool and said, sit down. What's going on? Akaban didn't feel right. After recalling the events of the past few days where he was too busy to sleep in, he didn't recall causing trouble. So no matter what the problem is, it's not his fault. Something happened to the Hyuga clan. But with this one sentence, Akaban couldn't help but cough, as his thought flew back when he met the patriarch of the Hyuga clan. It seems this accident seems to have something to do with him. What happened? It seems that you are really busy these days. The branch house going to the main house, confronting the main house and negotiating terms with the main house. Almost all the common people know this, but the one who caused this doesn't seem to know. It's magical. Hiruzen sighed for a moment, and then talked about what he knew, while Akaban listened quietly. In the end, Akaban was shocked. There is only the patriarch left without the caged bird. The patriarch of the branch house is too great. Not only that. Think about it carefully, isn't the current patriarch Meizuzu of the Hyuga clan? That's mean he is all alone. Akaban touched his chin, and said with some worry, is Meizuzu Hyuga not afraid that when he dies, the people underneath him join forces to kill his descendants? Ha 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 ha. Hiruzen chuckled softly and took his pipe with an unpredictable attitude. Akaban pondered for a while, and then realized one thing: since the third Hokage knew them so clearly, it means that when that time comes, he would first make a move himself. If the branch house really dares to do it, in order to protect the rights of main house, I am afraid the third Hokage will help Hyuga main house without the slightest hesitation. Of course, Meizuzu Hyuga must have paid a certain price. And since he is not involved, Akaban has no way of determining why Hyuga Meizuzu chose this method, but what is certain is that with these methods, the patriarch, Meizuzu Hyuga, seem to have come prepared. He's a ruthless person. However, if this is the case, if one encounters a mediocre patriarch, I am afraid that the whole family will die with it. Does he have any plans? Who knows, maybe he wants to change the Hyuga clan. He does have another plan, or maybe he just wants to be alone. Hiruzen finally couldn't hold back, a happy smile appeared on his face. There are indeed various hidden dangers when Hyuga does this, but the village's control of the patriarch is not a shackle to Hyuga. Moreover, that guy Meizazu Hyuga is very deep like an ocean. Although he did a bad move in this matter, he is very good at pushing the boat along the river. And since he agrees to this kind of decision, he must have his own calculation in his heart. But for the village, this announcement is obviously very good news. With the Uchiha clan, and the Hyuga clan being included in the Hokage lineage after the civil strife. With two giants attached, how can other small families not follow? With every clan in hand. Even if there is a war, the third Hokage has the confidence to fight. With more chips on hand, it is no wonder that he will be so happy. Thinking of this, Akaban couldn't help but fall into thought. Do I have to wait for a day or two to give this book so that the third Hokage mood wouldn't turn happy to rage? Hiruzen took a mouthful of cigarettes cheerfully, then glanced at Akaban and noticed his hidden hands. What are you holding in your hand? This, actually nothing. It's just a comic that is going to be updated. There are some more questionable points. That's why I bring it over for you to review. Akaban smiled and handed over the comic in hand. After listening to his explanation, Hiruzen's brows were immediately locked tight. The last time Akaban showed it to him, the Hyuga clan was in chaos. What is it this time? As a Hokage, Hiruzen felt a little nervous at this moment, taking over the thick pile, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. He pressed his hand on the book and asked after pondering for a while, "You brought it here so that I can appreciate my death?" From your perspective it is very strange. Akaban was stunned for a moment, he doesn't know if the third Hokage is joking or serious. Do you think I have worked so hard to paint 30 chapters so that you can appreciate your death first? The key point is the impure world reincarnation. Okay. He pointed to the comic and motioned to the third Hokage to open it. Sarutabi Hiruzen took a breath of his cigarette's pipe, and after he was fully prepared, he reached out to open the first page of the book. The first page. Nothing surprising, no difference from the past, the plot is also as his expected Gaara vs Uchiha Sajuke. But, having said that, the Kazuki's attitude is a bit weird. But Hiruzen didn't think much and continued to flip page by page. What a joke, this kid gave it to him, so there must be a big problem in the comics, otherwise, with his personality, he would rather make time to sleep than come over. Quickly flipping through the pages, the fragments of the fight, until Gaara was injured and the enemy started their genjutsu, he finally stopped. The plan has begun. After taking a puff of smoke, he looked down and continued to turn over the page, and saw Kabuto and the Kazuki moved their hands at the same time. No, this is not the Kazuki. Hiruzen took a deep breath and then turned to the next page. Sure enough, it's the comic version of Orochimaru. One page, after another page. Although it was only a comic plot, he was also quite moved when he witnessed the fierceness and entanglement of his student in the comics. If he didn't notice the thoughts of Orochimaru, and let him conduct his experiments openly, will he become like in the comics due to various factors and guidance? It's hard to say. Because the future cannot be denied. Hiruzen exhaled and he took another puff of his cigarette and almost choked himself, because the content of the next sentence made him dumbfounded, and he almost slammed the cigarette pipe in his hand against Akaban's head, You stinky boy, you actually painted the impure world reincarnation. My lord, please calm down, you finish reading the comic first before you start reprimanding me. Akaban was ashamed and quickly pointed to the comic. Although it's really not good to draw the impure world reincarnation, the latter is the key to the plot. Without such a desperate situation, how could the third Hokage in the comic choose such a way to end his life? Do you know the consequences of this kind of jutsu disclosure? Hiruzen ignored him, and he slammed the pipe violently on the table, showing that he was really angry, otherwise he would not destroy his beloved pipe. Akaban wiped his face. At this time, Hiruzen was still breathing odor, and the splashing saliva seemed to be a shadow clone splashing everywhere. If I knew this would happen, I would come here with a mask. He blames himself a little, he is still too young and not thoughtful enough. Fool, are you listening to me? Hiruzen directly duplicated his cigarette pipe and knocked on Akaban's head, but it was dodged. Akaban sighed helplessly and said, "Please read it first. Can we talk about the impure world reincarnation after reading it?" Humph. Hiruzen did not comment, he took a seat again and continued to flip the pages, and he ignored the fighting of the little kids, and jumped to the place where he had his own drama. Later, he saw the dead demon consuming seal and what his self said. "Even if you kill me, the pillar will not be broken. The new Hokage who inherits my will become a new pillar and continue to protect the Konoha." Subsequently, the dead demon consuming seal sealed the first Hokage, second Hokage, and captured Orochimaru. Hiruzen were silent for a long time. This time he didn't start to spray his saliva, even if he was killed, but this ending touched him. Yes. From the first generation to the second generation, and then from the second generation to myself. Even if Hokage dies, a new Hokage will still be born, and the new Hokage will also protect Konoha and the country of fire. This is the will of Hokage. 1 page, 2 pages. In the quiet atmosphere, Hiruzen read the plot of the comics quietly. Although the next battle is for the little kid, he still takes it very seriously, because this genin is the future of Konoha. Especially Naruto. The same fate as Gaara, but the final result is completely different. Born in darkness, with a heart craving light. The opposite is Uchiha Sasuke, born in the light, and finally gradually going into darkness. On these two characters, he saw the shadow of Hashirama and Madara. Will these people be here in 40 years? Hiruzen picked up his cigarette pipe and wanted to take a sip, only to find that he knocked all the tobacco inside and spilled it on the table. When Naruto defeated Gaara, the scene returned to Konoha again. The battle came to an end. As long as there is a place where leaves fly, the fire will burn. The shadow of the fire will illuminate the village and let new leaves sprout. The message seemed to sound like a requiem. Hiruzen was in a trance, and he seemed to hear a burst of sorrow and joy, and there were still pictures in his mind. He feels like Akaban plays a genjutsu on him where he feels all the sadness and joy of the book. And the image is the scene after the death of the second Hokage. With the comic plot in front of him, Hiruzen couldn't help but cry. Where Konoha dances, fire is endless. I think this is the meaning of Konoha and what the first Hokage Sama dreamed of. After seeing the appearance of Hiruzen, Akaban dared not to speak. He didn't write any testimonials or patches, because everything has been perfectly interpreted in the plot. Yes, this is the will of fire. Hiruzen were in a trance, then sighed. Although the impure world reincarnation is abhorrent, This battle brought Hiruzen a new purpose and witnessed the decline of dead branches and the budding of new leaves. It's like a heritage. Does he want to ban the impure world reincarnation? He couldn't make up his mind even after asking himself this. Without the appearance of the first and second Hokage, the plot seemed to lack so much flavor. However, this jutsu. If you are worried about this ninjutsu being inspected by others, why not seal the jutsu of impure world reincarnation separately, and put the half-true half-false information of the said jutsu in the scroll of seals? Akaban whispered. You kid, you really will cause me trouble. Hiruzen sighed heavily. Although what he said is a good suggestion, but it is more troublesome, and at the same time, he understood why Akaban came to him, and why he drew so many chapters in one breath before releasing it. In addition, the figure of Orochimaru appeared in the minds of the third Hokage. Immortal rebirth. It's like a snake shed its shell. If he thinks about it, it's really Orochimaru's style. He must be guided correctly. Hiruzen secretly said in his heart. If such a genius really embarks on such a heart-wrenching path, he will regret it. After thinking about it, he closed the book and pushed it forward. Although the words were not stated clearly, the meaning was already obvious. He agreed. Thank you, sir. Akaban took it and couldn't help laughing happily. By the way, recently the village plans to set up a medical team to rush to the border and to the front line. So you can start as soon as possible in the preparatory department. In addition, pay more attention to the training of medical ninjas. There must be good seedlings, and reasonable guidance and education must be done. Hiruzen mentioned another thing. Akaban was stunned. They wanted him to train a medical ninja. He didn't think much, and said directly, the mentor. For the time being, you can look for it yourself. I heard Tsunade say that your level of medical skills is quite high. Mystical palm technique, whose difficulty is comparable with A rank, even if your actual operation is not good, but your theory should be fine. Hiruzen obviously had an acknowledgement of him, and had long planned to let Akaban take over. Akaban wanted to decline, but after glancing at the comic in his hand, he could only swallow what he wanted to say. Walking out of the Hokage building, Akaban noticed that there were fewer ninjas in the training ground. More than that, even Utatane Koharu is gone. It seems that this female elder will also go to the border and the front line to take charge of the work of the medical station. Konoha still attaches great importance to the land of Uzumaki. Of course. This time the purpose is not to save the entire Hidden Whirlpools village or must rescue all the villagers. What Danza has to do is to make a path and let some people from Hidden Whirlpools village escape and save fire for Uzumaki clan. The specific number of people that can escape depends on the Whirlpool family's own ability. In addition, in the country of fire, the daimyo probably has the same idea as the other daimyo in different countries that attack the Whirlpool country. So even if they escape to the country of fire, the Whirlpool family is still not safe. Regarding this point, both the Uzumaki clan and Konoha have already agreed, and both sides know it well. After Hiruzen read his comics, Akaban earned a full 1,500 points, plus the points accumulated in the previous 4 days. Akaban now has 3,000 points on hand. Needless to say, he first upgraded his attributes. With 10 mental powers, 2,500 points are gone. Leaving the temporary office shed, Akaban asked Kurama Yunlane to find someone and sent the manga to Izumi Yamano. After that, Akaban visited his clan and asked about the rocking chair. Last time he promised Fukasaku Sage to make a rocking chair for it, and he also gave his clan the design drawing for them to make a reference. And wondering if these craftsmen have made it in 4 or 5 days. Akaban had not been out for 4 days, so he didn't know the situation outside. He went out and strolled around today, and found that half of their clan Jonin and Chunin are gone, and only a few Genins were training along the way. Did the Hokage also summon them? Akaban thought in his heart and walked all the way to the patriarch's residence. Kurama Vuhen didn't go out, but he was not idle either, as he was holding several books in his hand and he didn't know what he was doing. Patriarch, what's the situation in the family? Akaban asked strangely. They went to practice medical skills. Kurama Vuhen sighed helplessly, then raised the book in his hand. Title: Basic Analysis of First Aid for Healing. Author: Tsunade. So they already know how to promote it. Akaban thought. His whole clan follows the general policy of the village, and what they were doing is definitely a good thing for their clan. Since as a clan who had a weak physique, it's definitely a good thing for them to learn a few hands treatments. Moreover, not everyone in the Kurama has a talent for illusion, but their chakras control talent must be far superior to others, and learning medical skills is much simpler than others. He sat down, and then noticed the chair under Kurama Vuhen. Isn't this his own rocking chair? Although the shape is a bit strange, the effect is the same. Kurama Vuhen noticed Akaban's gaze, and he smiled and said, "Your chair is very comfortable to lie on, so I asked the craftsman to make more than 100 more samples and let the caravan take them out and sell them to the wealthy people from other countries. You are so talented in the business." Akaban gave him a thumbs up. Since they have 100 more of those chairs, it's definitely not a problem giving one rocking chair to Fukasaku sage. After all, the cost of a few pieces of wood is only that much. And if they sell it to those rich people, the price will be at least 10 times higher. But instead of asking for one, Akaban ordered 5 rocking chairs. He plans to place one of them on the first floor of their house and place one on the lounge of his comic shop, one in his bedroom, and of course he wouldn't forget giving one to Uzumaki Mito. Although she has the appearance of a young lady, due to her age, she gets tired fast, so she will definitely like it, and the last one is given to Fukasaku sage. After placing the chair in a suitable position, Akaban lay in the lounge and swayed the chair under him, not only enjoying it but also seeing the people coming and going in the shop outside, which can be said to be quite comfortable. Of course, as spectators, Akaban shadow clones and Kurama Yunlang are not as comfortable as Akaban. And what they felt was hatred as they cursed secretly, "We are working here, but what are you doing over there?" But Akaban obviously didn't care about their opinions. It's been 3 or 4 days since the plot of Hyuga clan in Naruto happened. So what happened after that also passed like the wind, as many people gradually became accustomed to it. But what hasn't changed is that his comics still sell well. And this is thanks to Uchiha. Unlike the previous purchase of more than 20 comics a day, with what happened to the Hyuga clan, every Uchiha clansman now has 1 copy of comics this time. Which is quite delightful for him. Both of the clans are wealthy, and they both like doing things like mocking how the other party falls or watching jokes. For example, the episode involving Uchiha's plot also sold very well among the Hyuga clan, so now, the Uchiha clan also do the same just to mock and laugh at their rivals' faces. After lazing for a while, Akaban got up, took the chair with him outside the door and headed towards the Senju clan. Because of the old lady, he still has to go there from time to time. After all, his sister is still in her hand. Although Akaban is very attentive, he is not decent enough to just carry the rocking chair with him barehanded. Especially as a child from Kurama, who has always been like an aristocrat in terms of physical strength, so he uses transformation jutsu as he becomes an adult. He has to say that transformation jutsu is really easy to use. Akaban carried the chair and went outside the Senju clan. The Chunin gatekeeper saw the transformation jutsu of Akaban and noticed the Jonin uniform and the sloppy chair on him. And when he looks again at the chair, he understands that it's for Mito Uzumaki, so he does not prevent Akaban from entering the Senju clan land. Uzumaki Mito's perception is strong. Even if Akaban used the transformation jutsu, he could never hide it from her, so she already felt him when he arrived at the land of the Senju clan. But seeing him carrying a big chair, Uzumaki Mito was still a little uncomfortable. In the past, this kid brought either comics or posters. This time he changed his temper and brought such a big thing. What a pleasant surprise. Hello, Granny Mito, I was too busy to see you a few days ago. And this chair is the new project of our clan, so I thought of sending you one. Akaban said, putting down the chair cheerfully. You kid, come here, and let me see what those chairs are. Familiar answer. Akaban was in a trance, he suddenly felt it was a déjà vu. Put it down first, help me move this chair aside by the way. Uzumaki Mito is very happy. Although it is a new thing, the usefulness of the chair can basically be appreciated. Akaban put down the chair, helped Uzumaki Mito remove the old chair in a complicated mood, and then placed the rocking chair in the center. Boy, I know you're busy lately, not only are you working on your comics, but you're also working on a medical class, especially the Hyuga clan. It's so lucky that you have time to see this old lady. Uzumaki Mito lay down and said knowingly as her eyes squinted looking at Akaban while rocking her chair. The plot is like this. It's mainly because someone pushes the boat along the river, which has nothing to do with me. Akaban was ashamed. What happened in the comic is just the plot, and he is just a porter in another world. Moreover, after a while, he knew it well. He might make money when he deals with the third Hokage, but the other party will never lose money. Just like now, due to it, he got a lot of work on his shoulder given by the third Hokage which he can't refuse. Uzumaki Mito chuckled and didn't say anything. Isn't that the way these struggles are, and she has already seen it through. Then she sat up and began to paint. Hashirama's Everyday Life comic has been released for a few days more than daily, and the response to the first volume is quite good. Although some people think this comic is blasphemy to the first Hokage, no one dares to make irresponsible remarks when they see the author's name. Akaban leaned over and took a look. The content of this statement seems to be the content of the battle between Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. Uzumaki Mito immediately covered it, and then chuckled, it's not good to peek. It's boring to know the plot in advance. That's what you said. He tilde. Akaban curled his lips, he is not too curious. Because he saw part of it. Judging from the pictures and words, it should be about the origin of the two words Konoha and Hokage. Knowing what the painting is, there is no need to explore it. After all, how did Konoha and Hokage come from? Can he still not know? His previous remarks were just to fool the third Hokage, that's all. He glanced at it again. Then his eyes lit up when he saw what was written. He just released an update of 30 chapters, and it said the will of fire. And what was written of her draft was the line, where Konoha dances, fire is endless. As a result, first Hokage's wife stepped up to reveal the secret of what he wrote on his comic. It's over, even if I cry, no tears will show up. Thinking of this, Akaban tangled up for a while and said, Granny Mito, let's discuss something. Can you postpone the release of this comic? Why? Uzumaki Mito was puzzled. So, Akaban compiled the 30 chapters and prepared to explain the situation in one breath. And when she heard it, she couldn't help repeat the sentence. Where Konoha dances. Well said, Akaban, you are a person who really understands the Konoha spirit, like someone who died early. What do you know about the Konoha spirit and will of fire? Akaban was embarrassed and didn't know how to answer this for a while. After thinking for a long time, he humbly said, I just wrote down the third Hokage principles and deeds. How can a shallow person like me come up with such a profound truth? Ha ha ha. Uzumaki Mito laughed mockingly, then closed her drawing and leaned on the rocking chair to rest leisurely. I won't publish it for the time being, and you can tell me when, so I can give this book to Izumi Yamano. Thank you, Grandma Mito. Akaban breathed a sigh of relief. Although it's just a comic, it's all the truth in it, and with the identity of Senju Hashirama's wife a bonus. Who do you think the readers believe? Fortunately, Uzumaki Mito gave in. He sighed for a while, and at the same time was glad that he came to see Uzumaki Mito today. Otherwise, if the two comics were published at the same time, his mentality would explode. It's been a while since he saw her, so Akaban couldn't help but look at Uzumaki Tomiko, who was on Uzumaki Mito's side this whole time. After more than 10 days, little Tomiko Yunseal gradually stabilized, and the chakra fluctuations on her body were not so violent. But she is not very stable yet, and she has to learn other sealing jutsu first, so she cannot leave the Senju clan for the time being. So Akaban only left a copy of Mystical Palm Technique for her. Mystical Palm Technique is difficult for ordinary people, but the Uzumaki clan are masters in chakra control, and learning this type of ninjutsu is absolutely easy. Furthermore, Uzumaki Mito also understands medical skills, and the Senju clan has many groups of future medical experts. A lean camel is bigger than a horse. Konoha's original 3 giants, Senju, Uchiha, and Hyuga, have all undergone changes to varying degrees, but even so, they still have a powerful strength that ordinary families can't match. This is the background of the rich. However, the Senju clan has no intention of expanding and only wants to live a good life. Therefore, this ancient clan is very peaceful and suitable for elderly care. Because of this, after Akaban carried the rocking chair and went to Uzumaki Mito's courtyard, it didn't take long for the whole clan to know. Then, on the side of Kurama's house, the chairs have not been shipped out of Konoha village yet, but dozens of them have already been sold. Of course, these have little to do with Akaban. He is not interested in money. Akaban is most concerned about the points issue. During the war, the points rose very slowly. Even if he updated more chapters, it was only a bit higher than usual. If it's in the era of peace, the increase in points is probably doubled now. The large number of updates that totaled 30 chapters is by no means a quantity that can be handled in one day. Until the afternoon, Akaban did not wait for the team of Izumi Yamano to come. In fact, he didn't wait much for him to feel uncomfortable. He had been lying on the rocking chair and fell asleep, but on the contrary, the mental and physical state of Kurama Yunlane, who was working hard on settling accounts, and Akaban's shadow clone, was quite broken when they saw Akaban lying in the rocking with a relaxed expression. Until the next day, Izumi Yamano delivered 200 copies over. According to him, the 200 books were gathered by all the factories, and they were all sent to Konoha without being taken to other places in the Land of Fire. For foreign countries. They don't send Naruto comics to foreign countries at all. With this kind of update every day, even if it is sold to foreign countries, it is too much to sell domestically. There are few people in the village now, and the 200 books are basically enough, but for the sake of insurance, Akaban still asked Yamano Izumi to continue printing copies of it. As for the update sent just now, needless to say, he will send a copy to Uzumaki Mito first. Because she is his highest point giver in the village, and the points he will receive from her per chapter is more than 300 points, which are higher than the third Hokage. With these points, Akaban no longer intends to upgrade his attributes. Having 130 mental points is already among the top ranks in Jonin. Even the Jonin of the Yamanaka clan who specializes in spiritual energy does not necessarily have his level of spiritual energy. Except for some elite Jounin, the other Jonin basically can't stop his illusion with this kind of mental power. As long as there are no abnormal characters, his mental capabilities are absolutely sufficient. That's why Akaban intends to accumulate these points first. Because Uchiha's strongest dojutsu Mangekyo is about to appear. If the 3 Tomo is not worth risking an exchange at all, then Mangekyo is definitely worth taking the risk. Sharingan Keki Genkai alone will definitely not work. Akaban must first redeem Uchiha's bloodline. And since he cannot obtain Uchiha blood anymore, Akaban will have to spend more than 2,000 points in exchange. The previous squandered points were only 500 or 600, and it rose to more than 1,000 in the past day, but the problem is not big. As long as Uzumaki Mito finishes reading the 30 chapters, he will receive a total of 1,800 points. There are not many people staying in the village, and everyone is busy, but there are definitely a lot of Genin and Chunin. And the total sum of all of it will always be 2,000 or 3,000 points. He just doesn't know how many points a Mangekyo costs. Because in this volume when Itakai appears, he didn't use the Mangekyo ability for the time being, so the specific points value of Mangekyo has not yet appeared on the redemption list. But soon, Itakai will definitely use it. And it was in the next volume, and the update of the next volume had been handed over to Izumi Yamano, and Akaban immediately asked him to print a part immediately and send it over first. Right now, Akaban lies unperturbed on a chair. According to Mangekyo Sharingan's description, everyone's abilities are not necessarily the same, and he doesn't know what kind of abilities he can obtain after he redeems them. So he was really looking forward to it. On this day, he didn't dare to walk outside directly, and only dared to go to the streets to check the situation with the transformation jutsu. And he has to say that the influence of comics is great. When walking down the street, many people are holding a thick comic book. Some can't afford it, but after others have read it, they will also get the opportunity to read it by borrowing it. Orochimaru in the comics is terrible, and the ninjutsu that summons the dead is even more terrifying to everyone, but everyone is moved by Sarutobi's sacrifice and the will of fire. Originally Akaban thought it would be over after reading it, but he didn't expect the third Hokage to utilize it very shamelessly. In the afternoon, a village ninja climbed up the Hokage rock and began to write letters on the rocks below the Hokage rock. What is engraved in the rock is the words of the 3 Hokage in the comics. Where Konoha dances, the fire is also blazing, and the shadow of the fire will shine on the village and let new leaves germinate. This sentence is recognized by everyone. No one thinks it is abrupt. Instead, seeing this sentence engraved on the Hokage rocks, everyone applauded. And seeing these lines of words, the scene of the third Hokage sacrificing himself in the comics will involuntarily appear in their minds. So tears filled their eyes. In the Senju clan. After reading the 30 chapters, Uzumaki Maito was filled with emotion. Hashirama, if you are really resurrected, look at the current appearance of this village, you should be able to leave with peace of mind. She is the wife and comrade in arms of Senju Hashirama, and she clearly knows that Senju Hashirama has always been thinking of the village. Fortunately, there is Tobirama after Senju Hashirama and Sarutobi Hiruzen after Tobirama. One day, even if the sun dies, a new Hokage will lead Konoha down. This is the inheritance. Grandma, why are you crying? Uzumaki Tomiko asked timidly. Nothing, it's just sand in my eyes. Uzumaki Maito stroked her hair. There is nothing to worry about. Even if one day she becomes too weak to suppress the Kyuubi, a new generation will take it over. This book reached the climax of a short-term plot, and in just one afternoon, 200 copies were sold out. Different from before. If at first everyone has read it for the plot of the story, but this time, everyone wants to cherish it. At the same time, Akaban's points are directly close to 5,000. Of course, this is not only the income of Naruto but also the point income brought by the One Piece update. 5,000 points. Without hesitation, Akaban didn't care about everything else and went home first. Redeeming the Sharingan is a major event because this thing will inevitably open up after the exchange. It will be a big deal to be seen by others outside. Back at home, Akaban looked around with his perceptual ability, and at the same time asked his shadow clone to look out for any intruders, and only chose to redeem it after he was sure that he was safe. First, the Uchiha bloodline. Uchiha clan's bloodline is mainly for Sharingan. As for the probability of the Sharingan awakening, this needs to be discussed. Recalling his experience, Akaban can't even awaken his own 5-sense control, let alone the Uchiha bloodline, so he will use points again to awaken it like how he awakened his Kurama bloodline limit. Besides, 1,000 points is not much. Without hesitation, he directly awakened his 3-tomo. The moment he awakened his Sharingan, Akaban felt a tingling in his mind, and then his mental power began to gather. A special chakra formed, rushing in his mind, quietly changing his nerves and eyeballs. It didn't take long. The sharp pain finally subsided, and Akaban panted heavily and brought the side mirror over. His eyes were blood red. More than that, the 3-tomo surrounds the pupils in the shape of a derivative, which is very strange. Damn, it hurts. Normally Uchiha's eyes don't hurt so much, right? After confirming that he awakened his Sharingan, Akaban covered his eyes and did a set of eye exercises. Then, according to the memory provided by the system, he tried to cut off the Sharingan's special chakra and defective his Sharingan. Although he is sure that it can be deactivated since he has their bloodline, he can't help but feel a little nervous at this point. After a second, his eyes returned to normal. Success. It's a genuine product and not a defective product. After redeeming the bloodline and Sharingan, he only has more than 1,000 points left. More than 1,000 points, obviously it's not enough to exchange for Mangekyo, but Akaban is not worried because there is still a wave of will on Uchiha. After all, the plot is moving to Mangekyo Sharingan. Akaban closed his eyes and relieved the pain caused by the awakening of the Sharingan. After a long time, he opened the system panel. But he didn't expect his mental strength to increase by 10 points. Akaban was stunned for a moment, feeling a little incredulous. does Sharingan have this kind of side function? Besides, these 10 points of mental power at this level are too strong. Because the stronger mental power he had, the more points he needed for one mental point. Above all, it's from awakening his Sharingan. Thinking back carefully, he felt that something was wrong. Ido. Sharingan. Opening his eyes again, Akaban urged his perception and mental power to the strongest. Finally, he sensed a strange wave of mental power in his body. It is almost impossible to detect because it fits his body very well. If he hadn't possessed a powerful perception ability of the Sharingan and the Uzumaki at the same time, Akaban would never feel it. There is another individual in his body. Is it the Ido or his physical predecessor? Akaban's mood was a little confused and then took a deep breath, forcibly calming himself. I don't have to panic. Although it matches the body very well, as long as I awaken my main Gekyo Sharingan, my brain and bloodline will further change due to it, so its connections with the body will slowly decrease. At that time, I will be able to pull it out. My mental power is stronger than it, and I also have the sealing jutsu. So what's there to be afraid of? After ratifying everything in his head, he breathed a sigh of relief. After bold guessing, Akaban feels that this time, the reason he felt the Ido in his body is most likely because of the Uchiha bloodline that he redeems, and the awakening of his Sharingan further stimulated the blood difference of his body origin, resulting in a decrease in the link between the mental body and his body. That's why it could not be perfectly hidden from him anymore, unlike before that he didn't even know it exists in his body perfectly. In addition, whether the mental body is the residual soul of his predecessor or the monster Ido, Akaban has a great advantage. If the opponent is stronger than himself, it would have jumped out and made chaos like what happened to Kurama Yakumo in the anime, and he would surely recede in his body. He can also summon a powerhouse from the Dream to Per family and ask it for help. If he really performed it, how can a mere parasite survive after 1 or 2 hits? But if Akaban had not exchanged so many abilities from the system, and had enough ability to detect the abnormalities in his body in advance, when this guy grew up, he might be swallowed up in a different direction. After all, no matter how strong Akaban is, he can't guarantee that he can resist the guy inside him. In the afternoon, Izumi Yamano brought his team again. And when he learned that the Naruto comics were sold out, he almost vomited a mouthful of old blood. Because it's 200 volumes. If it's before, it will take a whole day before they sell out, but this time it only takes a short time before it got sold out, so how can he not be surprised? Not only did they have to print new comics, but they also had to continue to work overtime for the volume of 30 chapters Akaban gave him. So all his employees are happy and also suffering. Happy for the large money they will receive and suffering from their consecutive overtime. Of course. For Uchiha's people, Uchiha Itakai is very worthy of attention, because, from the previous clues, it can be seen that he played an important role in the massacre. Therefore, since the appearance of the last volume of Uchiha Itakai, Uchiha Yuan has been paying more attention to Akaban comics. And as soon as Naruto was updated, he immediately sent someone to buy it. Patriarch, I bought the comics. Uchiha Ensho put down the package and took out the comic he had just bought from it, including Naruto, One Piece, and the 3rd volume update of Jiraiya Love in the Desert. Uchiha Yuan took a glance at it, and first calmly picked up the comic of Naruto, opened it and began to read it. The content was as expected. Uchiha Itakai and Kaizen fought with Konoha's Chunin. According to the comic, Uchiha Itakai is obviously a super genius. Even Uchiha Yuan guessed that Itakai had probably already opened his main Gekyo Sharingan. This ability can only be understood by personal experience. Sure enough, Asuma and Kuinai weren't the opponents of Itakai and Kai's at all, and even with Kakashi's appearance, they can't match the two, especially Uchiha Itakai. On the next page, finally, the main Gekyo Sharingan was shown. Uchiha Yuan's hand in turning over the page paused for a moment, and when the main Gekyo Sharingan activated, Kakashi was instantly lost. Tsukuyomi. This genjutsu is well recognized by other clans, so Uchiha Yuan is not surprised that Akaban knows it. It is the strongest spiritual attack in genjutsu. Patriarch, does main Gekyo Sharingan really exist? Uchiha Ensho was curious. For the time being, only a few people in the Uchiha clan and Konoha village knew about Uchiha Yuan awakening of his main Gekyo. And most of his clansmen only know that Uchiha Yuan has strong strength, but they don't know that it is the dojutsu of main Gekyo. Of course it exists. Uchiha Yuan nodded. Afterwards, he continued to read. Undoubtedly, according to the development of the plot, Sasuke will definitely meet Itakai. The love-hate relationship between the two brothers, but Uchiha Yuan is not very interested in it, so he skips that page. After reading all of them, he closed the comic and recalled the plot in his mind. Uchiha Itakai killed his whole family. It's impossible. Uchiha Yuan shook his head slightly, not believing this. Even if he was a genius, became the captain of the Anbu at the age of 13, and then awakened his main Gekyo Sharingan, but no matter how strong his main Gekyo Sharingan was, it would be impossible to single-handedly kill the entire clan. That costs too much, and the Uchiha Patriarch is definitely not vegetarian. If one day Uchiha is so weak, that one day, let alone oppose the village, it would be easier to wash his neck and commit suicide earlier. There must be people behind Uchiha Itakai. Akatsuki. But what kind of organization is this Akatsuki that has the ability to collect tail beasts? It's not that he insists on relating the story with reality, but in the previous plot, Akaban has referenced some realistic organizations and names of places. As a result, this term alone seems to be completely unheard of, which is strange. Forget it, it's just a comic, I don't need to take it seriously. Uchiha Yuan laughed dumbly, shook his head slightly, then closed the pages of the book and put it back in the pile of comics. Take it to everyone. Yes. Uchiha Ensho picks up the comic and is about to leave. Wait, don't let the kid read the comics of Love in the Desert, give them to me. You just want to read it, don't you? Uchiha Ensho curled his lips and took out the few comics of Love in the Desert and gave them all to Uchiha Yuan. Afterwards, he left with the comics on his back. Uchiha Yuan didn't look at it right away, as he was still distracted by what he read. After Uchiha Ensho left, he sat quietly in the room, thinking about the possible impact of the main Gekyo Sharingan revelation. He didn't dislike Akaban for publicizing their main Gekyo Sharingan to the village. This kind of eye itself is not a secret. Almost even commoners know that Uchiha Madara has a powerful main Gekyo Sharingan. Because of this, their main Gekyo Sharingan was once labeled as Madara. When everyone mentioned main Gekyo Sharingan, the first thing they thought of was the powerful and terrifying Uchiha Madara. And with Itakai's appearance in the comic, it's just right for them to know how the villagers feel about main Gekyo Sharingan. That's why Uchiha Yuan is basically as stable as an old dog right now, without panicking at all. In comparison, Akaban was slightly busy. After the comic update, several more options were added to his redemption list. Mangekyo Sharingan. Water Release, Water Shark Bullet Technique. Water Style, Water Wall. A series of abilities, plus the previous ability used by the two Hokages like Wood Escape, etc. His list is full of abilities, which is dazzling. Of course, not much is really worth redeeming. For example, Senju Hashirama Wood Style, can he use it openly? Let us not discuss it. Akaban is not Senju Hashirama. Even if he redeemed Uzumaki clan's physique, Wood Style is better than greening at best. What's more, if the parasite in his body got compatible with it, wouldn't he be asking for death? According to his plan, he has to redeem the Mangekyo Sharingan. And Mangekyo Sharingan requires 4,000 points. The price is almost the same as the bloodline limit of the Uzumaki clan, but this is just a Mangekyo Sharingan. If he includes 3 Tomo and Uchiha bloodline, the price is much more expensive than the Uzumaki clan physique. Thanks to the 30 chapters he painstakingly paints for many days, plus the updated point income and previous savings, Akaban can afford to pay 4,000. Just like before, his perception was activated and his shadow clones were on guard, and after all, preparations were made. Redeeming Mangekyo Sharingan. Yes or no? Yes. 4,000 points got deducted. The moment the system's ability took effect, his eyes opened automatically. In his scarlet eyes, the 3 Tomo keeps rotating, and finally, the Tomo in his eyes slowly begins to change. The 3 Tomo turned into a pattern like a small swirl. And Akaban could feel that in the process, the Mangekyo Sharingan had absorbed his own spiritual energy and transformed it into an alternative chakra. Not only in Akaban but also the parasite on his body got its spiritual energy engulfed by the process of awakening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. As a spiritual body, spiritual energy is its most important power. So having its power continuously drawn out, it is currently in a very weak state. Although I don't like this kind of knobby way of speaking, but in front of these eyes, you have nothing to hide. After Akaban said that to himself, he then urged his Mangekyo Sharingan and at the same time activated his perception abilities in one breath, and urged his mental energy to the strongest. The blood in his body was boiling. This is the blood belonging to an Uchiha, which does not belong to the Kurama clan. So with the special chakra's effect, the parasite in his body was forcefully kicked out. Wish. And what jumped out of his body was a hideous monster, which exuded black energy and had long and messy hair, which looked like an evil spirit in myths and legends. At this moment, it leapt towards Akaban with its teeth and claws ready to devour him. But Akaban was expressionless, staring at it coldly, and then said with some pity, "Is this the scariest impression in my mind? It really is just a child." Before the hideous monster pounced on him, the pattern in his eyes began to spin. The next second, 3 shadow clones appeared, and as they became clearer and clearer. Ah tilde tilde. Ho ho tilde tilde. A female ghost with long hair covering her face, a cold and terrifying female ghost, and the third is a little boy white with a pale complexion and staring at him with cold eyes. It's Sadako, Kayako, and Siki Tosho. They walked around each other in a strange walking posture. And the hideous-looking monster, that was scarier than the 3, was so frightened that it screamed, and at the same time, it kept running away and backing away, looking terrified. It seems that its wisdom is not high. But its intuition is very accurate since it feels that if it gets killed here, it will really die. Because this is the world of illusion. Akaban sighed lightly, I don't care if you are the soul of this body or the monster Ido, but since I am currently stronger than you, anyway, you should die. In the next second, the real evil spirit rushed to eat the monster. In a short while, the hideous monster was torn to pieces by the three evil spirits. Its dark spiritual power became pure spiritual energy, and the three evil spirits also dissipated after they completely devoured the monster. And the spiritual energy eaten by them instantly merged into Akaban's body. Yes, this is the power of his Mangekyo Sharingan. His left eye can temporarily open the illusion world to make his illusion real, and his right eye's ability is that it can temporarily swap the role of the real in the real world to the illusion world. And that's what happened to the monster that came out of his body. Akaban pulled the monster into the illusion world, and then he applied the ability of his right eye to materialize the monster, temporarily becoming real, and them using his left eye ability to make the illusion become real. It didn't take long for the monster to be devoured by the other phantoms that are also real illusions. This kind of killing is also scary. Not only that, but Akaban also got a lot of spiritual energy, and his spiritual power skyrocketed. Looking at the panel, his spiritual power has reached 165 points. This spiritual energy has reached the elite Chunin level who specializes in spiritual energy and genjutsu. Having my spiritual power instantly rose by 25 points, how much energy did this thing steal from me? Akaban was very lucky. Although he is a traverser, and has a body that a monster nests in, but fortunately he has a system. While enhancing his attributes, he slowly transforms his body's physique and bloodline. Of course, if he thinks about it carefully, it will be fine even if he didn't do anything about it. If he goes to Uzumaki Mito to solve the Ido, with her unknown strength, isn't it like taking candy from a little kid? The monster has no wisdom to speak and can tell Uzumaki Mito that Akaban is the tenant and it is the landlord. Mangekyo Sharingan is quite easy to use, and it's definitely much stronger than the bloodline limit of the Kurama clan. Akaban sighed. It is worthy of the power of Sage of Six Paths legacy. Each Mangekyo's ability is different, like his left eye is somewhat similar to his own five senses, an upgraded version of control ability, turning the virtual into reality. However, the five senses control still belongs to the genjutsu ranks. It is the real transformation of the virtual into reality. As for his right eye, it's probably because he is too afraid of death, and often uses his shadow clone. In short, being afraid of death is not shameful. Thinking of this, Akaban quickly deactivated his pupil power, and the pattern of his eyes faded instantly. At this time, he felt exhausted, and his eyes were slightly sour. The spiritual energy consumption is a bit large, but the load on the eyes is not bad. Is it the cause of my physique? Akaban thought secretly. It's a pity that it's not easy to ask about the extent of Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan side effects. After all, Uchiha's information does not involve Mangekyo Sharingan side effects. Hey, Akaba, is there something wrong with you? In the evening, Kurama Izumu rarely went home for dinner. Since joining the guard department and serving as a senior, he has become increasingly busy and rarely eats at home. So after not seeing his son for a few days, the moment his eyes fixed on him he immediately felt that Akaban had become different. Akaban was a bit twisted and out of place before, but today he doesn't feel that way anymore. Father, I have defeated Ido. A smile appeared on Akaban's face. Defeating Ido means their bloodline limit will usher in evolution. This is recorded in the ancient books of the Kurama clan. After hiding his Sharingan, Akaban also felt the evolution of his own blood inheritance. When he was using genjutsu, the consumption is lower, his operation becomes faster, his five senses control become more delicate, and his illusory domain's injury transformation is stronger, but of course, compared with Mangekyo Sharingan's ability, it's still much worse. Kurama Izumu was stunned, and then using a closer look, he found that Ikeban's mental power was extremely vast, far surpassing him, a special Jonin who is good at the arts of genjutsu. It's in line with the surge in mental power after defeating Ido. He took a deep breath and said with ecstasy, unexpectedly, you would have defeated it yourself. I was thinking that once you awakened it, we would go to Master Mito to ask for help. It came out to cause commotion this morning and was forcibly killed by me with sealing jutsu and with my spiritual energy. Now that I think about it, it is indeed dangerous, but fortunately, there is no danger. Ikeban naturally pushed the credit to the sealing jutsu. He didn't talk nonsense, because he actually considered using sealing jutsu. He even thought of using the hideous monster Ido as an individual, injecting it with power such as nine-tailed chakra, and then sealing it with a sealing jutsu to form the effect of a pseudo-jinchuriki. However, as an outsider, Ikeban didn't dare to walk on a tightrope when he encountered an Ido that was more compatible with his body. It would be better to eliminate it in a budding state for caution. I'll talk to the patriarch. This is a major event for the whole family. Kurama Izumu is very happy. A major event for the whole family. Ikeban was stunned for a moment, just swallowing an extremely weak Ido. Is it so serious? He was about to stop his dad, but Kurama Izumu had already whizzed away. Forget it. Ikeban sighed softly and then began to adapt to the skyrocketing mental power he has. 165 and 103 are really not on the same level. With his current mental power, the simple five-sense control illusion construction no longer needs the help of painting but can be achieved with Death Mirage Jutsu. Yes. After devouring Ido and having his mental power increase, Death Mirage Jutsu can not only infer through five senses but also transform injuries through the means of turning virtual into real. Of course, the effect has not been tried. When Kurama Izumu returned, a bunch of people followed the patriarch, grand elders, and some elders of the family. Among them, Kurama Murano was the most excited. When he came over, he held Ikeban's hand, trembling all over, making Ikeban worry about whether this old man would be too happy to go to meet Yama. On the second day, even the village know about the news. However, there are not many high-level leaders in the village, only the third Hokage, Mitokado Homura and some clan leaders of other clans. The Kurama clan was born with a genius who defeated his Ido alone, which made many families feel tremendous pressure, especially some families that were similar to the Kurama family. The arrangement of the family seemed to be holding a grand ceremony, making it a meeting of the whole family, but that afternoon, a messenger from the third Hokage came. And it seems a new task. With the land of whirlpools in a war against many villages, and with him getting stronger after devouring his Ido and redeeming Sharingan, he really can't think of the possibility of avoiding it. So Ikeban did not refuse and followed the Anbu ninja to the office. When they came to the office, the third Hokage was holding his chins while reading a battle report. Hokage-sama. Ikeban greeted at the door and waited for the third Hokage to raise his head and wave his hands before entering. Hiruzen twisted the battle report and said, Ikeban, you have been very busy with the latest update lately. Do you want to go out and relax? Ikeban didn't know where it would be better to start complaining. He was already mentally prepared for the task, so he didn't need to make such a roundabout way. He picked up the battle report and glanced at it. Ha! It's not the Hidden Whirlpools village, but Land of Rivers, and it seems the Hidden Sand village Jinchuriki appeared in Land of Wind. Do you think their Jinchuriki will come to Land of Rivers? Akaban's expression was solemn. With Mangekyo Sharingan in his body, even if Shukaku appeared, he doesn't need to worry too much, but the problem is that his Sharingan cannot be easily exposed. That's his trump card for life. Our top priority is the Hidden Sand village. We didn't know what happened to the second Kazekage, so for the time being, it is best for us not to speculate what the next action the other side will make. So we can only arrange them first. Hiruzen took out the map, and a series of icons were drawn on the map. Above is the formation diagram of Land of Rivers. There is personnel distribution on Konoha and some distribution positions of Hidden Sand Village and Rouge Ninja. Among them, there are also the subordinates of Orochimaru that they got from defeating the Rouge Sand Nin previously. The reconnaissance team set off for a month, and I am afraid that they have a better understanding of the layout of the Land of Rivers than those King of Land of Rivers. What do you mean? Akaban couldn't figure it out, so let him go to the country of the river to fight those sand ninja. But if the other side wants to dispatch Shukaku to fight, unless he revealed his Sharingan, he was only going to be killed. Hiruzen coughed and said, I know you and Orochimaru have some subordinate rogue ninja in the Land of River, that's why you will be stationed there temporarily as the leader of the Rouge Ninja, and if the Sand Village take action, then it's your turn to take action against them. If it's before, he didn't dare to let Akaban go. If the Jinchuriki of Shukaku is really there, even if Akaban's innate talent is good, they will only send him to his death. But after the annexation of Edo and the advancement of his Keki Genkai, Hiruzen became confident of his choice. Besides, this kid always likes to hide his strength. After giving him the scroll of sealing jutsu, he must comprehend some sealing jutsu. Hearing it, Akaban suddenly wants to slap his past self for accepting this Rouge Ninja. He allows Orochimaru to subjugate a group of rogue ninja before. He doesn't know if Orochimaru got any benefits from it, but for him, it's a tragedy. He didn't think his decision on that day will lead him to this kind of mission. Akaban has a headache, but the Land of Rivers is also an important transit base anyway, and it's hard to be taken away by Land of Wind. Damn it, then let's go, and take a look at how our free trade zone is going. Thinking of this, he nodded and said, all right, but in terms of equipment and funds, I'll give you some, and you can develop those people. Get it right over there. Hiruzen understands Akaban's ideas very well. Don't you need money for development? In his previous life, isn't Orochimaru looking for cooperation with the Land of Sound, and isn't it the money of the king from his people? Akaban didn't want to make a loss and pay for the things for the village. In addition, if you do the mission yourself, is there no one from the preparation department to do it for you? This is a reasonable request. Hiruzen of course also agreed. As for who to look for, he didn't say anything nor Akaban asked, but there are not many people in the village who can fulfill the role, so there are only a few candidates, and it is between Orochimaru or the Uchiha. As for who it is, it has nothing to do with Akaban. Akaban left that night and went to the country of River. His physique reached 100 points, which is barely passable for Jonin level. Although there are no specialities, there is definitely no problem on the way. The next morning, Akaban arrived at the target town. Before entering the town, he changed his appearance and outfit of the former Orochimaru with his transformation. He wore an ordinary katana on his waist and hid a small dagger he got from Sakumo's father in his arms. After a long absence, he found that the situation here has changed a little. Walking down the street, every few steps he takes, he can see a guy with a big sword and a short sword. From the look of their dress, they are definitely living a miserable life. And what's strange is, those wandering rouge ninja who likes to pretend to be ninjas seem to disappear suddenly. What's going on? He secretly paid attention all the way, then walking to a familiar road carefully, he pushed the door and walked to the previous tavern, only to be confused when he saw the tavern. The decoration looks the same as in One Piece. There are two big posters at the door, which are painted with Zoro and the newest Hawkeye poster, and on it is a string of wanted reward money. But the style of painting is a bit poor. It is estimated that the painter tried imitating his drawing. Entering the door, he saw a lot of swordsmen with long swords around their waists. Some of them had 3 swords, wearing green bandanas, and dressed like Zoro. But regardless of appearance or their imposing manner, it was far worse. At most they were beggar versions of Zoro. What's the situation? Is this the town of Zoro cosplay? Akaban touched his chin and thought, after not being here for more than 2 months, how did it change so much? Since he got no answer, he walked in. He didn't immediately look for his subordinates but sat in the corner to observe the situation. At this moment, another person walked in. He hadn't even entered the door, but he saw 2 big wanted posters posted at the door with the high bounty written on them. And he stared at it for a long time. The ninja walked in, his eyes scanned the audience. Akaban glanced at him, and then his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. It's an expert. Finally, the newcomer ninja eyes landed on the beggar version of Zoro. His voice was a little hoarse as he asked, "Are you Zoro worth 10 million gold coins?" "Zoro worth 10 million. Ha 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 ha, this uncle will make me laugh to death. Hey buddy, he called you Zoro. Ha ha ha. If he is Zoro, then I am Hawkeye." A group of people drinking in the tavern laughed, whether they were taunting the beggar version of Zoro or laughing at the new ninja, but Akaban stood up silently, ready to go away. This group of people is hopeless, even provoking this kind of money maniac. Although they don't recognize the newcomer, it didn't mean Akaban didn't recognize that man. Because he is none other than Kakuzu, who proclaimed fought against the first Hokage. "Hawkeye Mahawk, the world's #1 swordsman, do you deserve that kind of title?" He glanced at it, and then moved behind the beggar version Zoro in an instant, holding the neck of the beggar version of Zoro neck in his hand, and with a twist, he killed it directly. Clean and neat. Everyone's eyes widened, and the audience was silent. There seems to be a little difference in appearance, and the one may not recognize it. He frowned, seemingly worried. At this moment, the person who just clamored that he was Hawkeye took out a comic book and said with a trembling voice, "By Big Uncle, Zoro is a character in a comic, not a real person. No one will acknowledge it even if you take his head. In a chaotic place like the Land of River, if you want to live longer, you have to admit defeat first, or you will have nothing if you lose your head." Ha! He was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he didn't understand what the comics were, but roughly he understood that Zoro and Hawkeye are fake, and the wanted order is also fake. That's it for this part, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.